Welcome to another episode of Treasure Corals, and in today's video we're finally going to take a look at my coral farm. Welcome to another episode of Treasure Corals, and in today's video we are going to take a look at my coral farm. So there's been quite a lot of changes to this setup over the last year. I started off with this tank over here. This is the main tank, and I'll talk about all of the aquariums in detail, but this was the first one, and then later on I've extended this to a tank over here, and then moved on and recently added one more aquarium over here. So there are 3 tanks plumbed in together, and this is my area for fragging, and I'll talk about this in this video as well. And over here, this is kind of my little place where I store all of the coral food and fish food that I use, all of my testing equipment, so lots of fancy caddies that I make, and all of the different test kits that I use on a regular basis. This is the area where I where I test. So this is where I test corals. This is the area where I make my salt water. This is the area where I weigh certain things, and if I'm mixing certain things, so I use this. And then if we go over here, this is my quarantine area. So my coral quarantine system and my fish quarantine system over here. So this is my whole setup, and hello to Niagara Coral Show. And now let's actually take a look at each tank individually. So let's start with the big one with, oh, and also this is the area where I have all of my more testing equipment, some of the handy things that I use. I have some buckets. I also have a water change system over here. So it's quite packed. You can imagine I've done a lot with such a small space. But let's take a look at the big tank first. So let's start with the sump. As a matter of fact, I have this humongous sump that was built a year ago. So it's made out of acrylic, looks pretty fancy. I have certain chambers here. So the first chamber is where I have the bean animal. So I'm using the Synergy Reef Ghost Overflow, and then the water goes into the sump. You may notice I have some power head over here so that there is no detritus buildup. Then there is this area here where I don't use filter socks. I actually use something that I have designed myself. So there's this insert which I also make, and then you just cut out and put a piece of filter floss, and that thing stays here for maybe 2-3 days, and then I just toss it, add another one. Then we move on to the next area, which is all of the rock, and you can see there's tons of live rock here. It is full of probably some sponges and other creatures. Moving on to the sump skimmer section, where I'm using the Nias skimmer. It pulls a lot of gunk. And then finally move on to the area where I have my return pump. So I use a calc reactor in addition to 2-part dosing, which is right over here. So this calc reactor is very similar to the one I've built for my treasure reef. So now let's move on to something that's probably you're all waiting to see, which is my corals and frags section and fish. So I have tons of, so I'm going to turn off the light so it captures a little bit better. You can see I have lots of fish in my coral system. Some of the fish are really awesome. I have this purple tank. I have this, what is it, the orange shoulder. I have Nassau. I have a few wrasses in here. So basically lots of fish. I have a powder blue. It's a large system. So the tank itself is 6 feet by 3 feet long. I think it's about 16 inches high. Euro brace. And we look from the top. I've made a lot of changes to the system. I have changed up how I organize the corals. I have this 10 by 10 cutouts out of egg crate that are all connected with my own connectors that I also make, and it's sitting on legs that I also make, which are right over here. So when talk to your favorite store, they'll probably carry these products. The really cool thing about the legs, as you can see, it's not using any space. So this is a leg right over there, and you can see that I am not losing any spots, and I can place my frags anywhere I want. And what you see here, this is probably my 4th iteration of changing the flow and just the layout of the tank, trying to maximize both flow, the space, space for corals, everything. And I've now moved everything a little bit further towards that wall. This is where I have my MP40s. They blow underneath, so there's no detritus. I have the open area here where the fish like to swim. I have lots of Monties, as you can definitely see, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So you've got Monties, then this is where the highest lighting is. You can see I've got quite a few acros here. Then I have some more acropora, and I have some colonies over on that side, and then finally again some lower light Monties. Now I frag it a lot, and I just deal with the stores and send it over, and that helps me to pay for that hobby. Now, what else? We've got this beautiful Nassau tank. We've got a bristletooth here somewhere, and let's move on to the second aquarium. So you can see the main theme about this one is Monties and acros. So this is all kind of SPS, and the Monties, if you notice, it's mostly either branching or encrusting. Now the second tank that I've added is this Seapora tank, and it's all, well, almost all LPS. So there's obviously a few hard corals here, but really it's all LPS. I've got a section of mushrooms, I've got the gold hammers, I've got the frog spawn, I've got the GSP, I've got anemones. This is a sample anemone that basically ready to go. More frog spawn, and it's a similar idea. I have the MP40 that pushes the water underneath, and then I got just this gentle flow going in this direction. I've got a few fancier corals over here. Still, this is a fairly new system, and it's taking time for me to really dial it in, so I'm experimenting with the lighting. This tank has this XR15 lighting, whereas this aquarium over here has Gen 5 XR30. Recently I have added one more aquarium. So I had this what is it, the Innovative Marine long aquarium for a while, and I didn't know what to do with it, so finally I've just plumbed it into the main system. So you've got only plating Acropora here, sorry, Montipora here, and there's also this plating Hollywood Stunner Chalice. Still working on some of the colors. I think my green and Christmas Monties are top notch. My Reef Raft Naughty Spiral is a little bit bleached. I just need to increase the nutrients, and I need to lower the light intensity. So that's, I'm sure it's gonna color up nicely in the next little while. Now, moving on to my fragging area. So this is where I have my Griffin diamond saw. I have lots of area to be doing the fragging. I really enjoy doing this. I have a little fan over here that I turn on, just sometimes I need to get some stale air moving, and I have this pretty awesome way to take a look at the coral up close, just to see if there's anything wrong with it. So because sometimes I need to examine, so you may notice I have the natural light, but I'm reusing this old Hydra 26 HD, or what was it? I think it's, yeah, 26 HD, to see the coral with its fluorescence. So this is my coral system, and I'm really curious for somebody. So I'll say a few words about the challenges of a system like this. This is way different than keeping a regular coral reef tank, because there's just so many corals and they're so hungry, and the nutrients and all of the trace elements and everything else, like everything is just way different. So, and I'm still learning. I still make lots of mistakes. I'm really getting to the point where certain corals look phenomenal. So you can see, you know, this Aquaman and the Sunset Monty, they look just spectacular. But then, you know, I would take an acro from the main aquarium, place it here, and then I'll notice it's gonna lose its color. And sometimes I don't know why. So I'm still learning. And then right next to, let's say, a coral that is almost bleached, I still have some fancy coral over here that are exemplary. So right next to each other, corals, some look great, some look horrible. I don't get anything, I don't run a chop shop, I don't buy any colonies, I don't import anything, nor I ever plan to. So that's not what excites me, but well, even here, look at this. You've got two forest fire digis. So this one here in the back is just phenomenal, those three. And then this guy over here seems not so great, and then I have no idea why. So maybe it's the same lighting, it's the same flow, but just goes to show you there's just sometimes certain things are off. Now, what else? This is the area where I make my two-part. So I have these two buckets. I use the slip system to just plumb in this faucet, so I can open it up and pour without basically overflowing anything, or just trying to make things as simple as possible. There's still lots of work, there's still lots of cleanup I need to do, but that's just how it is. I make the water over here. So this area, this container is RO water. This is my salt water that I've just recently mixed. I have my trusty Versa that's pumping the water change and calc upstairs. And then what else can I show you? So I've got a little section over here where there's just some mementos. I also have this area where I can control things. I need to restart this, but this is my kind of dashboard, which I do like a lot. Some of the food that I use, so for the coral, I think my #1 go-to always have been Reefroids, so I use the professional edition of that. I also experiment with some fauna stuff, more fauna stuff. There's the polyp booster, all of my fish food. This is where I make my own mix. I've shot a whole video on that, so I use every single one of those fish foods. And I always measure. Let's take a look. Nitrates, I love this test kit. Magnesium, calcium very rarely, and then obviously alkalinity and phosphate. Those are the big ones for me. I also am a big believer in weighing things, so I use this a lot, this scale. I also have this awesome mixer. Whenever I need to feed, I will always, if I'm using Reefroids, and I'm at some point going to shoot the video on this, I will just get some of the water, put it here, and then throw whatever amount of Reefroids I'm adding, and that's how I and let it sit for about 5-10 minutes to mix, and then I introduce it into the tank. Now I'd like to, and this particular pump is dosing Kalkwasser. So I'd like to ask your opinion on what can I do better. It's just sometimes you just don't see certain things, so I appreciate everybody's comments, and if you give me certain ideas that I can implement, I will be very grateful for that. A few other little things. Recently I've, for example, taken the big chunk of Setosa from my main tank, put it here, and then it peeled. I have no idea why certain things peel. This is something I've been getting lately. Like I said, I haven't introduced anything new, I haven't changed anything, but that's just how it is. Look at that Aquaman Monty though, the color. And I'll talk more about individual corals maybe in the next video. Let's take another look at the fish as they come and say goodbye. And that would be today's video. So my both bristletooths are doing well, and this is just a hobby that I really like. I like to come down into this little man cave, turn on my favorite podcast. Sometimes I really like listening to reef builders or something aquatic in nature. Sometimes it might be philosophy or something else. So listen to that, and or an audiobook, and then just do some fragging, enjoy coral gardening. That's what it is. So this is my garden, and I really like this hobby. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and like I said before, write in the comments below if you want me to concentrate on any topics about the coral farm or answer some of your questions. I'll gladly do it in the upcoming videos, and see you next week.